Hi guys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Kook Shed, my own little YouTube channel where I talk about ideas and tips and reviews relating to surfing and bodyboarding generally. Today I just want to do a quick little video about painting your surfboard. Now I was going to do this video. I've been meaning to do this video for a little while. And someone commented on the last video, Dom, about, you know, how do I paint my boards. So I thought, well, now's as good a time as any to do the video, so here we go. As you probably know, I like to ride firewire boards a lot. I've got a fair few of them, different models and whatnot. And a lot of the firewire boards that I have, they use an bio-resin, whatever you want to call it. It's just a bit more environmentally friendly type of finish to the board, but there's a downside to that, and they with heat, they get discoloration. They go from a white to sort of a brownie or a yellow quite quickly. So when I pick up old or used boards, or if I've got a new one that has discoloured in the heat, I will give them a paint job sometimes. So I'll just run you through the basics of what I do. There's different ways to do a paint job on a board, but I'll just give you a rundown on what I do. And you can go from there and make up your own sort of method, or you can come up with your own ideas if you like. So I don't do any patterns or designs, that sort of thing. I'll just coat the whole board in one colour. So the first thing I do though is I clean the board. You have to have the board impeccably clean for the paint to go on. That means if there's any dings or cracks or things like that you need to fix, do that before you paint the board. So you might buy a used board, or you might have an old board that you want to paint, and it might have a few damaged areas, so fix them first. I've got a video on how to sort of fix those things up, as long as it's not too heavy an injury to the board. So you want everything watertight. You want all your dings and cracks, you want them finished off as nice as possible and nice and smooth and ready to go, so they won't need to be redone later on, and you're removing paint to get to them and that sort of thing. And yeah, so definitely clean your board first. I use, if I don't have the organic goo remover, which I've got in another video, I'll just use some mineral turpentine. So I'll get the wax off as good as possible, as much wax as possible off the board. There's many methods of doing that, so you can check out some other videos I've got on how to remove wax from your board. So as much wax as possible off, and then I will clean it with the terps. Top and bottom, over and over until there's not a skerrick of wax on the board. Now, because terps is not friendly to paint, I usually I'll then clean the board with water. I'll wipe the board down with a wet cloth and then dry it, just so there's no terps left hiding anywhere on the board that might affect how the paint sticks to the board. Some people just like to let the terps dry and then they'll paint straight onto it, but that's your call. It's probably best, if you really want the paint to go on and stay on, I would wipe it down with a wet cloth to get any terps or whatever cleaning agent you've used on the board off the board before spraying. So that also brings me to the next step, which is sanding. You might like to just spray straight onto the board, but you can also sand, get a little bit of sandpaper or a sanding paper block, and just use a really fine sandpaper. It doesn't have to be too rough, I guess. I just use a basic fine one. I'll just give it a very light rub over. That's just to sort of give the paint something to grip to when you spray on. I must confess, I have painted a board without sanding it first. It seemed to work okay, but yeah, it's generally, most people will give the board a light sand, really light sand, just to sort of rough up the coat, the outer coat, so that the paint will grip to it, so it's not such a glossy surface. So then I get, and once again, after that, you need to clean the board. You need to wipe it down. You can't have any skerricks of anything left on the board before painting. It needs to be as clean as possible. So if you've sanded it, you might not have, but if you have, yeah, you need to wipe it down, wet cloth, then dry it, that sort of thing, so there's no foreign sort of articles on the board. So then I use different paints. I just go down to the hardware store and get paints that I like. You can get ones now that are specifically for surfboards, painting surfboards. I've seen like there's little art kits you can buy for your surfboard and to do designs. But generally I just go and grab this Rust-Oleum stuff's pretty good. It sticks to the board pretty well, sticks to plastic and metals. And I don't know, it just seems to be a higher quality paint brand for me. And it's got a couple of nice colours that I seem to go for. I've got a few boards in this colour, this sort of tealy green or dark green, and then I've got a few maroon sort of burgundy boards as well, like this one here. So that's the brand I use. I've tried other ones. There is some other good ones out there. So, but just don't go super cheap if you can help it. Pay a little bit more and get a better quality paint if you can, because it seems to stay on better. It seems to, I don't know, it just seems to be better, okay? You don't want cheap and nasty. If you go into this much effort, don't go the super cheap paint. Go something a little bit better. Okay, and so I will do about 2 coats of this on the deck and the bottom. I usually spray the rails, tail and the nose. I'll give them a bit of a thicker coat, but it's always super light when I'm applying it with spray paint. I don't use an airbrush sort of thing or a compressor. I just do it super light. I start from the edges and then just fill it all in. Just go, area by area. You don't want to just make, be really thick on one part of it. I just go, take it slow, take it bit by bit. I'll just do all of the, let's just say the bottom, because it's here now. I'll just do the bottom. I'll give it 2 coats, and I'll go away, and after each very light coat, like you'll be able to see the white through the paint for a fair while. You don't want to just cover it all in one go, because you'll get runs, you'll get drips. It's horrible, and you'll waste your paint, and you'll waste your time basically. You want to take it easy, then let it. This dries in about 10-15 minutes, like touch dry. So you can go give it a coat and then leave it. Sometimes I'll get a fan. I'll get a fan in the room just to help dry it quicker. Obviously the room has to be, free of dust and those sort of things, because that'll just blow dust onto your board. If you do it outside, watch out, bugs and things might land on your board while it's drying. So you try and do it in an environment where you can control what will or won't land on the board. Yeah, so I will just leave it and then come back, then spray, then leave it, then come back. And I'll just do 2 main coats on top and bottom, and in between I usually do the rails and tail and nose. I'll give them a little bit more because they're areas where they'll come into contact with bumps and things a bit more. And I try and keep a little bit left over for touch-up jobs. If I get a scratch on them or a bump or a ding, I've still got a little bit left where I can just fix that and yeah, make it look better. One good thing about using cans is I've found that you can get can lids, the can lid for the helium boards anyway, and some boards with round logos. I found that the can lid, well, I've got a can lid that fits that pretty much perfect. I'll just line that up as good as possible and then just gingerly spray just around it. Look, I haven't got that one bang on, you can see it's not perfect, but I just like to leave one or two of the logos on it. But yeah, a spray can lid will cover that and leave it so you've still got some sort of a logo still on your board. I've also found that the electrical tape, just the standard black electrical tape I use for the fins, for the fin boxes, especially like Futures as well as the FCS2s. I'll just use, I'll cut a length, and I just do it by eye. You could cut one length and then replicate that 5 times or 3 times or 2 times, however many fin boxes you've got. But yeah, I just cover those slots with electrical tape, and that seems to stop paint getting in there and that sort of thing. I also put electrical tape on the dimensions of the board, so I remember, so I've got all the information there. As well, you might want to leave your the actual serial number of the board too visible, so you can remember what serial number the board is. You might want that for security purposes, I don't know, but yeah, I put a bit of electrical tape on there so that I've got my dimensions and things still available to me, which, as you know from the last video, I mixed up my dimensions with another board, so it's handy to still know that. Same here, I've just chucked a bit of electrical tape there on the Chumley just to give it something, so it's not just a total blank board. Now, for the leash plug or the leash pin there, I put a 10-cent piece on there. So in Australia we've got a 10-cent coin, and that's the perfect size for this. Oh, sorry, not for this one. I've done electrical tape on this one. Sorry, I'll tell a lie. But on a lot of my other boards, I've used a 10-cent piece around the round leash plug pin, and that seems to work really handy. Work really well. Sorry, for that size. So yeah, I've got one in the shed that's just all covered in paint because I just lay it on top of the plug and then just gingerly spray just near it, around it, until it sort of sets into the paint, and then off you go. So once that's all dry, once I've done the top and the bottom, I'll remove the electrical tape or the stickers or the coins or whatever I've put on the board to leave some of it from being painted over. I'll take that off, I'll take them off, and then I will, and you've got to be careful too, it has to be super dry, it has to be fully dry before you take off the electrical tape or the spray can lid, because if it's not dry, if it's still a little bit wet, it won't just pop off, it might even pull some of the paint with it. So you've got to be careful, it's got to be crispy dry before you remove any of those things. And then once that's done, I'll give it a coat of clear. I used to do 2 coats. You can do 2 coats, but you could probably get away with 1 coat depending on what you want to do with the board. Or yeah, this same brand, Rust-Oleum, I don't know how you want to pronounce it, doesn't matter. There's a satin and then there's a gloss as well. Now I have tried both. I've tried satin finish on boards. I've tried gloss finish. Gloss would be better because it would be supposedly faster, as in there's less resistance in the water. You know, a lot of shapers, a lot of surfboard manufacturers go to great lengths to make sure their boards are nice and smooth, and that's so they glide through the water better. So if you're using a satin paint and a satin finish, you'll get a rougher sort of surface on the board. And look, I haven't noticed the difference myself. You know, I'm no shredder, I don't know if there's a difference, but I will say the satin finish, it has better grip. So that's like when you're duck diving and things like that, it actually has better grip on the rails. The satin finish is just a little bit grainy, whereas the gloss is, you know, a sheen, a smooth sheen. But whether that's affecting the speed of the board or not, I'm not sure, but it probably would. It probably would to some extent, so be aware of that. Also, another thing you want to be careful of, you don't want too many coats of paint. You want as much paint as you can use to make it look good and cover the logos underneath and cover anything. You know, you want it to look good and as good as you can. But you also don't want to use too much. So don't overkill how much paint you're using, because it's weight. It's adding weight to the board. Now with the helium boards, because I'm spraying firewire helium ones and a few other different types, the helium's already pretty light, so it doesn't matter too much. But if you've got a board that's already quite heavy with a lot of glass, and you're painting it, just keep in mind that, like, paint is a liquid. Paint starts off as a liquid, and then, well, it remains as a liquid when you put it on the board, I should say, but it's a liquid and you're putting it on the board. So when you first buy it, look, it says 340 grams, right, on this. So that 340 grams is going on the board. And sometimes, like if you've got a long board or like a really big board and you might use 2 cans of paint for whatever reason, or 1.5, that's a lot of weight you've just added to the board. So keep that in mind. Use it as sparingly as possible, but also enough to give you a nice clean coat. So just be aware of that. I haven't noticed too much of a weight difference, but when you've got 2 coats of paint and a coat of the clear coat, or 2 coats of clear coat, I'm just saying be aware that can start to add up, and if you like the weight of your board, you might find that it's just a little bit more than it used to be. So just keep that in mind. But that's pretty much it. I'm sure I've forgotten something. I usually do, but I can always add it later in the comments, I guess. So just the key is, look, just to take your time. Take it easy, because you only want to do it once. You're not going to get it perfect, you know. It's not like out of a factory or whatnot, but it might be enough to just give your board a new lease on life. Like I said, I like doing it for my the firewire heliums, because they change colour a lot. Or the LFTs, they change colour with the heat. One thing is, you got to protect the paint. Once you've painted it, it's, I don't know, because I've only used 1 or 2 coats of paint, I don't like to, I mainly use board socks. I found that soft board socks, you can see, I don't know if you can see, but I've got a board sock there. All my painted boards, I usually use a board sock on, just because I found it's less scratchy. Sometimes you can get those big padded silver ones, I don't know, when they get older and brittle, or they get things inside and residue and that, and bits of sand, they can scratch the paint, the finish of the board a lot quicker. And also when I put the board down to sort of wax it near the car park, or even if I chuck it down on the sand and put my leg rope on, if there's like sticks and stuff on the sand, I'll be a bit more careful, because I've painted it and I know I don't want it to scratch off. So you just got to be aware of that. It's just a little bit more delicate than just the white finish that it used to have. There's nothing wrong with scratching it. You can just reapply a little bit of paint, but if you don't want to keep having to do that, yeah, just be careful with your newly painted board. So that's pretty much it. Like, all my tail pads stick to the paint, no worries. I've never had a problem with them, you know, not sticking or with the tail pad, you know, ripping off paint, that sort of thing. I guess if you're applying a new tail pad to your newly painted board, I would say make sure you get it bang on, and so you're not, like, as in, make sure you're getting the application of the tail pad right the very first time, because you don't want to be ripping back up the tail pad a few times, because yeah, you might peel some of your paint that you've just put on, especially, you know, if you're a bit too keen and you haven't waited for it to fully 100% dry, which I definitely do not recommend. Yeah, it could peel up some of the paint, and then the paint would be on the sticky part of your new tail pad too, which you don't want, because that's an area now that won't stick to the board. So yeah, just be careful of that. You want your pad to go straight on. You don't want to be ripping it back up and rearranging, because I don't know, it might, if you haven't done it right. That's just something to be aware of. Anyway, that's pretty much how I do it. I definitely am not doing a professional job. It's mainly just to give the board a new look, cover up some dings, cover up the colour that was on it before, and it seems to do the job. So yeah, hopefully that helped you. If you have other methods, other ideas about painting your board that you want to share with everyone else, let us all know in the comments. If this was helpful to you in any way, in some way, just hit like. And if you want to see more ideas, tips, gear reviews related to surfing and bodyboarding in the future, just hit subscribe, and I'll see you here next time on Kook Shed. Thanks for dropping in. Catch ya.